Well, hello everyone, and welcome to our online partner event to all our friends, customers, and partners from around the world. If I could be a little bit presumptuous and a bit cheeky as we start, today really is a big milestone for Australian cybersecurity. We're unveiling Crystalline 5.5, the latest and most powerful incarnation of Red Piranha's unified security platform. And if just trust me, this isn't just a software update. It's a strategic upgrade of our stance, our positioning, and our solutions. With 5.5, we've taken everything that made Crystalline a real standout in the cybersecurity market, and with its integrated firewall, its NDR in the control plane, its vulnerability scanning, its inbuilt SIEM, compliance mapping, and made it faster, smarter, and more tightly integrated more than ever before. We're also unveiling further and deep integrations with Microsoft 365 and its Entra ID integration, with single sign-on available with brand new VPNs. We've also enhanced our zero policy enforcement, and we're launching a brand new Declarative Authorisation Service that gives you laser control over who accesses what, when, how, and right down to the microservice level. And because it is still powered by our 24/7 Australian-based SOC with full sovereign data control and support, you'll get real-time response from people who understand local compliance and risk requirements, especially across ISO 27001, Essential 8, PCI DSS, and NIST frameworks. Let's see how this release has come about, with me handing over to CEO and Chief Cybersecurity Guru, Adam Bennett. If you do have questions, if you could please raise them within the chat session, and we will respond to them either during the presentation or after the presentation in great detail. We do have time for questions, so please chime in if you can in the chat window. Mr. Bennett, over to you.
Thank you, George. Thanks for the intro, and great to be here today. It is a fantastic milestone for Red Piranha. If you don't know our release cycle, if you're a new customer or a new partner, or you're just checking us out for the first time, we aim to release 2 major releases each year, although we do have rolling software updates, which I'll talk about that later on. But the company was originally founded out of frustration in 2015. And essentially, I started off with a black box, trying to scale myself, predominantly around incident response. In 2015, we then founded the company. I was working on the project before that. We're currently a globally recognized platform for comprehensive threat management, and we're introducing more controls all the time. This has been built from the ground up over the last 10 years. We're multiple certifications and partnerships. I won't bore you with all those today, but we are ISO 27000 certified, ISO 9001, CREST certified. We're an official team member of Team Defence Australia as well, and also part of the OISF. And we're also the first company in the APAC region to be invited and then accepted into the Cyber Threat Alliance based out of Washington, with a number of other consortium partners working to eliminate cyber threats across the world. We have a unique offering as SOC as a service. I've taken the model here. We've taken the model as a company, and that old model of jamming events into a SIM platform and then trying to make sense of them and catch everything just doesn't work. We've known that for the past 30 years. We've gone and distributed policy management and control and processing across the stack, across the environment, and then that gives us a unique offering when it comes to SOC as a service. And I'd like to talk to you and show you more about that and why this is important. We've seen advanced cybersecurity threats grow and change. The threat landscape has grown over the last decade. If you go back to the Sophos, before they bought CyberArm in 2015, if you asked the CEO of Sophos at the time, one of the world's leading antivirus companies, what percentage of threats could antivirus actually protect you against at the time, he would have said 15. In fact, he did say 15%. If you asked a security engineer at the time, they were saying 5%. So let's say 10% as a round number, just to save arguments. Back then, though, before 2015, 2010, prior, the only sort of attackers out there were either hacktivists or advanced persistent threats, cyber espionage. Since then, we've seen a massive explosion in financial crime. We've seen now financially motivated attackers in the industry or have their own business for the last decade. And what happens is their sophistication has grown, and we've seen EDR bypass, advanced bypass tactics, living off the land, increased ways to do covert, CNC command and control communication, and of course evasion techniques of these as well. And this is also due to geopolitical sort of situations around the world changing that threat landscape as well. We see a much more advanced cyber espionage program globally from multiple countries, and this is making it challenging for all of us in the industry to protect, detect, and respond efficiently to that threat landscape changing. The cybersecurity journey, Red Piranha is a full service organization. We help companies through, and I break down cybersecurity into 7 pillars for my internal team members learning about cybersecurity who aren't in that space, like marketing teams or sales teams or even support teams. And it starts off with policy enforcement and strategic alignment. If you're going to start putting more protection controls in, we need to have that strategically defined from the top. And hence why programs like the Defence Industry Security Program in Australia or ISO or, it doesn't matter what framework it is in the world, nearly all of them, 99.9% of these actually state that strategically executives need to be involved in that. And that is because if we are going to lock down things, we need that set in good policy. Once that's done, we need to train people, not just about the threats. And I think this is a misnomer or a misunderstood part about security awareness training. It's not just about teaching people to be vigilant against phishing, and that's one big part of it for sure, making team members aware of those risks. But it's also about teaching people responsibilities about acceptable use of technology. What is acceptable, inside a threat, and even just use of software that's specific to the organization can reduce risk in a big way. And of course, if you're going to start blocking things, taking a zero trust mindset and actually taking an access mindset of we will only allow things to be accessed that the business needs, can greatly reduce risk. And that comes down to point number 3 in that access control. You can't do DLP, data loss protection, until you've got essentially asset classification and data classification. You can't do that without good asset management. So it's a roadmap. It's a strategic roadmap. You can't then block things if you don't map out what is meant to be used. Once you've got all these things in place and good zero trust segmentation and network architecture as well, then we need to continually monitor this for vulnerabilities. Okay, and then there's multiple ways to do this depending on your stack. Then, of course, monitoring for actually events and policy breaches, security events and policy breaches, and then responding to that. These two are separate for a reason, and that is because they're large areas. Detection engineering is a complex thing, and we need to go through stages and processes to evolve with an organization for that. And then, of course, being able to respond and having set playbooks, but also having, we look at Edith County University in Western Australia at the moment. They've done a paper recently identifying over 200 different security functions or security roles that can be in an organization. And this is impossible for most organizations, right? So this is where the scale is needed in that response, and having specialists who are different in different areas, and the tool sets as well. And then, of course, you've got your BCP as your continuity, your business continuity management, your backups and things to restore and things like that. So it's about really identifying security as a holistic journey as well, and the journey for holistic coverage. And you are better off having 10% of 7 areas than you are having 90% of 2 and nothing in the other areas, believe it or not. So security, you're only as strong as your weakest link, whether it be cyber security, physical security, and what we've seen over the years, if you go back to that timeline and historically that we're talking about, we've seen fragmented solutions evolve over time, and that's because prior to 2010, the only people buying cybersecurity products predominantly were, apart from antivirus, were the top end of town, banks, defense. And so what we've done as an industry is we've tended to gravitate towards these best in breed point solutions that if you go and analyze, a company might have up to 100 of these, anywhere from 20 to 100 different security products. A lot of the time, they're not even used correctly. That 10% is not being used, and this is a real problem. But you also get a bunch of engineering overhead. And Gartner now recommends or states in their reports that if you have a 20 security program, 20 product program there, it can take up to 12 engineers to make these things talk to each other and work. And that's a really expensive proposition. And that leads us to that experience shortage that we have in the security industry as well, experience across these different products and platforms. And, of course, you also get the limited adaptability and inefficiencies and all that too. Someone updates something else breaks. So by consolidating these, we're really increasing that visibility. We're decreasing the false alerts because of the service offering integrated for companies, and we're increasing the efficiency on how you can roll out a holistic program with your organization or your partners. The integration solves security gaps. We've got cohesive visibility, synergy for threat defense across cloud, network, and endpoint. We've got unified management, again, reducing that complexity. Things like managed firewall as a service to with our partners and customers allow for efficiencies in establishing good zero trust environments. We've got advanced proactivity through real-time intelligence as well, integrated into the platform, and round-the-clock escalation and support for our customers. Red Piranha's unified solutions in action. In 5.5, we've really expanded the platform to cover cloud-based environments. You've got Declarative Authorisation Service, as we discussed, and we'll talk more about that. You've got best-in-class threat detection and incident response. We detect all known malware and CNC families. That's a statement we're quite comfortable with saying. You can follow our threat intelligence and our integration week to week. We publish the data. And of course, we've got integrated IR and forensic capabilities, which we'll talk about more later on as well, from our SOC and our TDIR, as well as a service there. And advanced network detection and response already embedded into the platform alongside behavioral analysis. And like I said, across policy triggers across cloud, network, and endpoint. When we talk about consolidation, Red Piranha is looking to consolidate a number of controls that really do deal with a holistic program. So identifying, protecting, detecting, of course, that ability to respond, not just in a retainer, but assist with recovery and response in the event of a breach, and really reducing that dwell time, which reduces loss and risk. But I'll talk more about that as we go through some of the platforms, some of the technology and how we do that. We've got integrated services like vulnerability management and eCISO, our electronic eCISO product, which aims to automate a lot of the data and auditing functions within a vCISO process that some of you might be familiar with. Next generation firewall, borderless firewalling, as we call it as well, where we're really taking that next generation firewalling, zone-based firewalling to another level. Integrated secure web gateway, secure email gateways as well, endpoint protection with CISA. And of course, as George said, we've advanced and enhanced our SD-WAN capabilities, application whitelisting at endpoints as well, and application management. The MDR and that true SOAR capability starts to become apparent and available to every organization with a fraction of the overhead and engineering costs. Some of the things our partners and what we've seen is a mass adoption in partners came to us about a mass adoption in cloud use over the last few years, particularly in DevOps environments. Even we were at a partner event last week and talking to a lot of our partners and some end customers there. Some of the feedback we got on this was immediate. They've been asking for it for a while. We see an explosion of stack across even multiple geographic locations, a really shifting of the sands in what we define as assets in our environment as well. Assets are no longer just a server or a laptop and an IP. We now have microservice assets running off one IP, and you can have hundreds of different assets on a single IP and a single server, not just with virtualization, but with containerization, Docker and Kubernetes, for instance. And of course, we're using multi-cloud environments, which starts to erode and remove that perimeter protection that we've been relying on since since 30 years ago, essentially. And that brings us these new problems of authorization, where it's happening everywhere in the cloud. You've also got the big problem, right, where we want agile development for our developers, our DevOps or DevSecOps environment. We want to give these people control over assets so they can develop and push out product really quickly. And that's fine. we're in product and we want to do that in our own organization too. But what that gives is you've got infrastructure teams that have been traditionally owners of assets, wiping their hands of this problem and giving it over to a developer, for example. Now, a developer with a mindset of pushing a product fast out to the market might not be thinking or even just able to catch all those security risks. They can be multiple security risks. And of course, this becomes a problem. So one of the other things we've given back to the infrastructure and management teams here and the risk teams is the ability to manage these microservice assets in the environment. That's an important thing. We can now manage those environments securely, create controlled conduits and clear zones, security zones into these without slowing down the ability and the agility of an organization to bring product to market quickly. And that's what we call our policy-driven access control declarative authorization service. So you've got service resilient, ability to manage multiple cloud access, create that borderless next generation firewall, as we call it, as a concept, enhanced application security for modern environments. And, that's automatic integration now with our TDIR program, our threat detection and incident response. You have automatic integration across your firewall, across your TDIR program, NDR, and of course, already baked in playbooks for response here as well. And threat intelligence is integrated into that stack. So it really does allow that centralized automation and policy as a code enforcement across microservices within Crystal itself. As George said, we really have advanced our VPN solutions. We've got now single sign-on integration directly with Entra ID for WireGuard. And even George, this is creating a new problem for our infrastructure teams, where George has a gigabit link at home. We're now giving our users gigabit access to our environment, and our infrastructure team's complaining that we now have to upgrade our environment to cover for more of this speed availability to our user base. And that's a great thing. We're bringing that power that was traditionally in that cloud environment down to end users a lot more securely. We've got enhanced performance. I think George said when he swapped over from the old SSL VPN that we internally with us, he gets about 800 out of his gigabit connection. He's now getting 800 cross country from Sydney to Perth. So we actually were able as an organization here to get away and dump our Sydney VPN POP because of that lack of latency and lack of speed issue now across country. And that's anyone who's been in the business a while know that's quite a formidable thing, having that extra speed. And of course, the extra security here is a major advantage. We also talked about with DAS, where does this sit from our product perspective? Everyone knows we've got our hardware appliances, Series 10s up to Series 100s. We've got our cloud-based POPs now in 15, 16 countries, which we'll talk about next. But we've got our SE 101 that we've developed with Intel here in collaboration with Intel. 4 years worth of engineering this took here, and we get up to we've seen up to 8 times more energy efficiency out of this. So if you're building private cloud, smart cities, defense, or you want that lack of virtualization risk, you can now have a dedicated control plane, right, for less than what you might think in the industry with essentially multi-gigabit speed. So we talked about that problem a little while ago by giving users all gigabit speed. Now we have to upgrade our infrastructure. This is one way that we can do it. And the problem that you do get when you start to talk about gigabit speeds with virtualization is the management overhead mathematically starts to cost more than what you're giving out. Going back to a control plane like this allows, like I said, better energy use. You get true gigabit speeds for your customer, and you get better security because you're removing all those virtualization risks. And even on the licensing factor these days, it's not a bad option because of what's happened with the virtualization industry generally in acquisitions. So really, if you want to talk to us, get in touch with your account manager. They're perfect for smart cities and private cloud build out. Like I said, we've also deployed our cloud POPs all over the place. We're now in it's growing every day. We just released another one in Toronto recently, and South America's coming as well. I know it's not on the map, but I think we do already have a POP in South America. So we're up to about 16, 17, 18 POPs now. So wherever you need a secure edge, you can spin this up automatically within hours, essentially, of signing up with us and getting your account set up. You can then spin up and then be deploying protection for your road warriors or your organization immediately and get these benefits, get across the board, like within hours, to do this traditionally would take months. If you're really good at what you're doing and had no problems with integrating 20 different products and purchasing and procuring those products, and then have the engineering nous to make those all talk to each other, right? You can now spin up all these controls out of the box immediately and get immediate benefits to your security program. That's an amazing thing we've done. I'll switch over now to our, I do have to share the screens, and bear with me, but this platform I have to select Windows to share. So, okay. What you're looking at here is a system dashboard of 5.5, which is actually being shipped next week. So anyone looking to purchase Crystal Eye Office now will spin up a cloud, and you're talking to your account managers. You'll notice this will be shipping to you. You'll notice first here is the app status, and the second thing to take notice of here is the software activity. I talked about earlier about how we do major kernel or major update releases, but what I wanted to fix here was a couple of things, and that was I didn't want our security product to be part an attack vector. We've seen in the news over the last couple of years a massive explosion on security products becoming the attack vector themselves, and I thought, well, that's just crazy. Why is that happening? Well, number one, we needed to reduce the attack surface of the product. Number two, we needed to monitor basic availability and integrity of the product. And number three, we needed to bring in rolling software updates, a lot like the mobile phone industry uses. So for 10 years now, we've been perfecting this engineering of rolling software updates. And you see this demo appliance here, even on the left, has had updates coming into it for the last few weeks as we've been testing all that for our customers before we launch, before we release this. You also have your app status. So once you've set up that network, we want you, and NIST makes this very clear now in the NIST requirements about not having fail open and making sure that we're managing networks correctly. And we work with our customers as a point here really closely. And we're also monitoring availability of that and integrity. So what that means is no one can log into this system as an admin or root without multiple internal escalations in our own organization. It just can't be done, right? So what that means is even if we make a mistake in our own GUI or anywhere from a vulnerability perspective, we won't get caught out, and we'll also detect that. So it becomes essentially the platform not becoming a security vector in its own right. So there are a couple of major important points to understand about how we do things at Red Piranha a little bit differently, but we're here to get security outcomes for our customers. Our security dashboard hasn't changed much. If you're new to us, you'll see on the left it's telling you who it's blocked. There's a number of threats, and this is just a small demo device, of course. There's a number of threats that have been attacking. You can see here Brazil has just launched one. This is live data. And if I don't know what that is, I can just go in here and escalate it to the Red Piranha SOC team. And hello, SOC team, I'm doing a demo. Please ignore. And they will ignore this submission. But if we don't expect our customers to know everything that's going in with these things, right? It's about automatic protection with automatic actionable intelligence right out of the box. So our integrated threat intelligence is one from China here just now. Our automatic actionable intelligence is already defending out of the box for you. That doesn't mean there's nothing more to do, but it's a good starting point, and we have up to 11 times more visibility than other products in the same type of class. You'll see at the top here, you've got your devices. We've really been working hard on asset management over the last couple of years as well, really increasing that asset management. And we want to train customers and work with partners to do asset management. We've also been working on CMDB as a service, but you can map assets directly from in here, and you've got asset management coming further in further releases as well. Our threat hunt dashboard. Now, this isn't aimed at our end users or partners predominantly, although we do work with some partners who do this. This is really about that integrated IR component that we talked about. The important part here is if in incident response, forget about technology for a moment, but if I get an indicator or a hit from an endpoint, where do I need to go next? Because once that indicator is coming from a specific device, I can no longer trust that device, right? That's the way hacking works. When I'm hacking something, I'm going to essentially make it look like it's something else is happening. That's the point. That's what happens. So if I get an indicator from an endpoint, I can no longer trust that endpoint. I need to go to the cloud, and I need to go to network to then correlate and find what's happening in this environment. If I get an indicator from network, I need to go to endpoint or cloud to correlate and confirm. And this is how we get SOC efficacy, by having that across the board. From there, and you'll see here, we've got integration, and I'll just check if we've got any data on this. Haven't spun up a network on this for a bit, but we'll see if we get some data on that. This would show all your cloud and Defender networking, but it allows our team to come in and do correlation through our threat dashboard here and generate essentially on-demand threat hunting, where it be proactive or reactive threat hunting. We do proactive as a service, proactive threat hunting as a service, which is a good control mechanism, but we also are able to do reactive. And what that means is we're trying to capture the 1 out of 100 breach. Now, what does that mean? What does that mean? Well, if you don't have people, process, and technology in play for your IR, do you really have capability, IR capability? You don't. And the current model in the industry here is to essentially have a retainer with businesses like us, which we do this. People come to us, they want to buy it, we've got to do it. They're ticking a compliance box. But does it really give you true IR capability? It doesn't. The only way to do this, right, is to have tool bases in situ, right, ready to roll, access control, ready to roll, and our automatic SLAs through our Orchestrate dashboard and our engagement with our partners, and the tool sets allow us to do this. So if we take that as a hypothetical now and think, okay, well, we need to stop that 1 out of 100 breach. You know, the one that cost Cadbury down in Tasmania, a small manufacturing plant of chocolate, $140 million, right? And you see all the big breaches, they all had indicators and events that either weren't picked up on or were lost. And a lot of the time this comes because the escalation process to go to the retainer model, bring in experts like us, is onerous. It takes weeks, you know, sometimes days or a week to get contracts in place, more days and weeks to get access control of specific systems and networks. It then takes someone like me to come and pull data out of that environment into a black box and then start doing threat hunting on that, you know, in a lab. It could be a month before a team gets any actionable intel on what's going on, right? And this is the problem that we wanted to fix. So if you break that down, and this is all on demand, and we have some packages already that George and the team have worked out to bundle this stuff for customers, but even on demand, if you're doing this once a month and ruling out a false positive once a month with us, it's costing $500 for, you know, the ticket, right? That's $5,000 a year. If you're doing that over 10 years, that's a $50,000 assurance program with this setup, right? That potentially saves that 1 out of 100 breach that costs you $140 million. So it's a really important part. We call it human machine teaming. It's one of my favorite parts of the whole technology stack, right? Forget all the other things. This is one of the best ways to stop that hack or that initial vulnerability or breach of that vulnerability, stopping it, essentially incurring any loss or risk to the organization, because hacking is not like the movies. We're not flying down the highway, you know, changing traffic lights to get away from that bank heist. There's pivoting, there's vulnerabilities, there's initial hook, and then there's pivoting through the network, and that's when the loss and the risk starts to happen. Other things we've updated here in 5.5, we'll see our AI and escalation reports. We've really picked up the lateral movement detection capabilities using AI in the system, and we've also got some other LLM AI in the system as well. As we move back through the platform, so we've talked about some of that incident response capability and that threat detection, that proactive and reactive threat hunting capability. But how do we deploy? Well, we need the flexibility then to be able to deploy in just about any network or operational stack that has a requirement on this. So if you move down the list, you'll see we've got task scheduling, single sign-on integration, multiple account management, Active Directory integration. You can also assign multiple roles. So you can actually start to look at different stakeholders can be operators within this and have access to different things with groups and users. We can back up as well, bare metal backups and configuration backups, and of course manage storage. One of the things we wanted to do is encourage customers to store forensic data at a price point that was feasible. So if you're buying a hardware appliance with us, you can actually stick hard drives in this through us and store data for extended periods of time. Anyone with an MDR customer or is an MDR customer with us with the SOC program also has essentially that capability, and we give 18 months straight out of the box for retention in line with the Australian Signals Directorate event logging requirements, essentially, because I've never seen an incident response that doesn't require, a good amount of time going back to make sure that we have the original attack vector. And so it's really important that you have this in. And then, of course, after that 18 months, you can purchase storage from us for longer periods of time if that's your requirement here. You can manage all your factory resets, dates and time, general high availability as well as available. And, of course, managing your software updates. I get a lot of questions on that. Can we manage our own change control for software updates? Yes, you can. We take on that risk, right? So with automatic software updates, we're taking on that vulnerability risk of the platform. If you turn that off and want to run your manual change control process in line with our software release cycle, we can help you write a policy and procedure around that as well. And of course, system registration down here. We register each appliance is unique. Each appliance is built to order. Each deployment, whether it be cloud, is linked to a specific operator. And this is really important to understand as well. And there's also some new changes coming in there at 6.0. Actually, not 6.0. It's coming out in sprints in 5.5, where partners will now be able to fully register for end customers a lot easier too. So that's a nice feature that's come out of partner discussions. All your advanced firewall, we've had a number of improvements in networking, essentially. So you've got things like improved flexibility and operation stability, in complex networks environments, updates to things like link aggregation, improvements to HA and network port mapping. And of course, what most people don't realize is your zone-based networking here allows us to have a lot of power in how we manage a network. Now, while a zone-based, a full application zone-based networking system like this, next generation firewall like this, takes a little bit more strategically to set up. It actually allows you to have a lot more easier management, particularly in complex environments, a lot more easier management down the line. So we can help with deployments and help with design and secure design. You can set up clean zones and clean conduits and really increase your chance to detect lateral movement and increase your visibility, all through good strategic operations. And we're here to help you. And of course, this visualization just says that as you see what type of policies you have in those zones. And this is all in line with IEC 62433. So that's the OT, critical infrastructure standard that you must abide to, if you're running critical infrastructure in Australia. We have the SOCI Act, and that means we can set up clean zones and conduits, control terminals. We have all heard the story about the thermometer and the fish tank getting a casino hacked. Well, this type of setup would have stopped that breach, because you can give a dedicated control zone to that casino, that operator of the fish tank, but then restrict that access across other areas and other zones, and also get immediate detection on that. I move down on the left here to our DAS system here, and you'll see that we've got a couple of Docker images set up already in policy monitoring, and we can configure and edit policies. We can get in and manage policy enforcement at microservice level here. So you can see we can just set up rules, configure and publish policies direct to those Docker environments, and then monitor and run the compliance all from within Crystal Eye itself. And again, you get that immediate detection. If I go back a few days here, I believe I might have some denied entries. So, this would be things happening in the environment we want to monitor, and allows you to manage these multiple cloud. You'll see here what's happened, and these events can be brought straight into the SOC as well from there. So it allows you to get a lot of extra detection and protection for that environment, and would have helped things like protecting against the Medibank private attack and the Optus attacks, where API security is predominantly bad. But if we go back to what I said before on the slide, the most important part here, I suppose, is again in the operations and how we use this technology day to day. We can give that flexibility to your DevOps environments, but bring back the management, the asset management here, okay, to the infrastructure teams, and really give back control without hindering any development, because you can set the policies and manage the policies all from a single interface, and that's really important. And of course, this is also all linked in with our automatic actionable intelligence here on the right. And you'll see here we've got our Crystal Eye AI here on the right of that as well. I won't bother about showing you how it works, but how can I'll just run one. How can I set a zone for protection of my cloud environment? Did I spell that right? No. And we'll keep moving on from that because it is still in beta, this thing. So, and we move down into our intrusion detection system. Oh, it's thinking now. We might have to wait a little bit. Automatic action intelligence. This is we have essentially a integrated threat intelligence platform. If we go back, some of the issues around threat intelligence that irked me over the last few years was that it's easy enough to buy feeds of data, but the hard bit is, where do we integrate that into the stack, and how is this integrated into the stack? It's essentially, it's one thing to have those feeds, but we need to essentially put this data into the stack to then get actionable outcomes out of that. And by doing that, we've essentially gone and solved that problem for customers. Like I said, we're the first company in the APAC region to be invited and accepted into the Cyber Threat Alliance based out of Washington. And we work with a number of consortium members globally, government and private vendors, to share information around security and make sure that we're getting that correlation in our stack so that we can do better at incident response. And it looks like I've just given the AI something to do, and it's the API calls might not be working. The next one that we go to here is our passive encryption control. So this isn't set up at the moment for a demo, but this is a technology essentially which we talked about, those clean zones and those clean conduits. It allows us to do, like it says, passive encryption control over OT devices. So through that borderless zone-based firewalling structure we have here, we're able to set up a clean zone. For instance, you could set up all those thermometers of fish tanks in there, or CCTV systems in that zone, and have a clear conduit or a secure conduit to a third-party operator, for example, for those cameras. And that can then be monitored and controlled and locked away from the rest of the network. But what this technology does is it's application, it's encryption aware as well. So it takes snapshots of the devices itself in the environment. And essentially from there, any change or behavioral change to these devices will then isolate it from the network. And I give the image of, if you think back to The Simpsons with that bird that's drinking water, but you can't stop that bird because it'll blow the nuclear plant up, sort of thing. That's exactly what we're talking about here. It can isolate that device without interrupting its operation. And of course, this solves a big problem, because in the industry for years, we've been thinking about trying to essentially deploy certs in that environment on those products. But if anyone understands the OT market, where we're building these things up of modules on top of modules like a hamburger model, it's just not going to work. So we came up with a way to essentially manage and isolate these devices. And again, great for critical infrastructure there for passive encryption control. We've got a whole other webinar just on that one feature, a whole webinar just for that one. If you want to watch that one, get in touch with us and we can let you watch that one and see a demo of that. We've made massive improvements in our secure web gateway as well. So application, and there's more improvements to come at 6.0 over the next 6 months as well, where we've got a thing in our technology in our platform, which is called the UCMI, which allows us to integrate these control mechanisms essentially across a stack. And it's not an easy thing to do. You know, other vendors have gone and spent $5 billion buying different technologies to try and integrate, but they're still separate products. We've got full integration here, so we need to be tracking how that goes in a stack. And there's a proprietary technology called UCMI, which allows us to do this. And we're now unifying a lot of this policy management within this environment, a secure web gateway here. So you get your antivirus, application filtering, protocol filtering, web filtering. You've got SSL, deep packet inspection, both explicit and transparent proxying as well. If you look down the left here, we're moving into the control or the compliance controls. DLP hasn't gone through a lot of updates of this, but with the integration of the Office 365, you've got DLP now, you know, across the network and in the cloud and endpoint, essentially with Defender integration as well. So we really can start to, and I actually encourage people to set up this, for example, for honeypots. Really quickly set up a honeypot. Incident response is done here, which there's not much to do in this, and that's the easiest thing you can do to set up incident responses. Fill out your SOC, fill out your details here, which then creates the SLAs, changes service level, to what service level you want. And of course, you now operating SOC. If we go in with that integration with Microsoft here, you see we've got our summaries. You've got no data in here. It's not linked up to a tenant at the moment. It was one done a while ago. Let's see if I can find some data. No, none there. But essentially from here, you can do audit, user audits. You can lock into threat intelligence changes within that environment. You can also monitor and track your policy setups that you do. But you can also now push policy directly into your environment. And you can set up Defender and manage Defender policy as well, and manage this whole structure across endpoint, cloud, and network right in one setup, which is really important. And I think a really great function that you can have. And down in the risk auditing function here with Caesar now, you can also push policy directly from Windows Caesar into Windows desktops and actually manage policies and even control things like USB access on a laptop from Crystal Eye. And of course, that device, once hooked up, essentially allows you to pull even SBOM data directly into the asset management program and actually see what's happening on Windows devices, but also get that asset data from container environments and run vulnerability scans in container environments directly from Crystal Eye as well here. So you can now do full network penetrations, ongoing penetration testing through the network scans, but also run a complete SBOM across your container and bring that in. And this is why we've been working hard to essentially run CMDB as a service. And this is all being made available through the Orchestrate dashboard as we speak. And I'll have to stop sharing now a little bit and go over to another share because of the way things work here, and go through our Orchestrate dashboard just to show you where you will be able to manage multiple devices, your customers. These different dashboards for different types of partners, of course, but from this one is a partner one, and you'll be able to see your incidences and deployments and notifications that you have with the security operations teams. You'll also be able to log in and manage multiple deployments, and we've got a lot of scope going on here that our infrastructure teams been writing up for. So you'll be able to run your PCAPs, packet capture services for proactive and reactive threat hunting. You'll be able to deal with your vulnerability and container scans, and also run your notifications from here. But also manage your eCISO projects from here that are linked in as well. But this is the new part, and this is in the roadmap now. You'll see here we've built out a full CMDB as a service in the back end, and we're now working on this front end, essentially to really redefine asset management and organization, and really take the problems out of that asset and vulnerability tracking and management. That is a big problem. I looked at the industry and thought, well, no one's really done a lot here, and we've got so much scope within the platform to be able to do that we can pretty much build asset management out across multiple environments and stacks within a customer base. And I see we've not got the presentation deck anymore there, but look, that's the running through of George speaking on mute, and that's the technical presentation of 5.5. We're really excited to bring that to you now. We're not just alone. We operate at Red Piranha as a true partnership, and that is we work with our customers to build out continuous threat exposure management or continuous threat exposure management programs through deliveries with our eCISO and our risk advisors. You've got that integrated threat intelligence, but what you're seeing here today is all integrated in our licensing model. Okay, while we do have services on demand, all the technology is integrated. Vulnerability management on demand as well. You can be running vulnerability management, monthly if you want. You've got an increased revenue for your business without the risk if you're a managed service provider partner here. Without you investing in SOC and investing in security teams, you can now be offering security operations to your customers with a partnership with Red Piranha. And of course, all our security, while I'm CEO of the company, all our security and training will be free. And we want to get our community involved in helping us build that out more. So if you would like to help out on that, please get involved. And, we are that defense collaboration trusted partner here for you. So Look, happy to take any questions. I know you're not sure if people can see the questions at the moment, but George can read them out to me and we can answer any questions then. Thank you for coming along today.
Adam?
Yep, I'm here.
Adam?
I got you.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Adam, I've got a few questions that have come in through the chat. If I could just bring them on. We've had one question around vulnerability management. You've mentioned it a few times. They're saying we now have to comply with ISO 27001 mandates around vulnerability management. So does what you're talking about marry up with what they want?
Yeah, it's a good question. Look, vulnerability management isn't scanning. That's a tool that we use within a vulnerability management process. And I think this is the most misunderstood thing. People think, oh, you do a scan, we're doing vulnerability management. Vulnerability management, if you're using a tool, traditionally like an open source tool, and you can do vulnerability management with Nmap if you want, right, to tell you things. But you need to be doing threat modeling and processing. So a tool might give you back on a subnet range, thousands of different results, right? But not all of them are real results or results you need to be paying attention to. The trick here is having a specialized team who understand, one, is there a CV or is there a risk? Is there an actual vulnerability? Is that vulnerability exploitable? And what type of risk is outlined from that vulnerability? And that's where the beauty of us of having this linked into asset management and risk auditing, which I didn't go through on this platform demonstration, but we have that linked in with, other programs where we do this for the customer. So the results you're getting back have been processed, and that's a massive time saver for the business and what most people don't realize. So that process does give you then compliance, if that makes sense.
It's a yes. It's a yes.
It's a yes. It's the process that gives you the compliance. Yep.
All right. Had another one. We're doing a gap analysis, trying to meet Essential 8, maturity level 2 ASD you mentioned now has 18 months worth of log retention. Do you store that on the appliance or in the cloud or in your SOC, and is it completely Australian sovereign?
Yep, we can be sovereign in any country essentially. So we have multiple data centers, and yes, in Australia, it is all stored in Australia. Our SOC in Australia is in Perth, and we can store in the US, we can store it in India, we can store wherever there's a need for that. So that's the systems have been designed that way. You can, for out of the box on a hardware deployment, you have up to 90 days in the system storage. You can then buy, when you're ordering this appliance, extra hard drives, and then that storage, it'll be determined by the size of the drive you get in your use and things like that, but you can do extended storage quite cheaply on your appliance. The 18 months is in our cloud environment as an MDR customer. So if you sign up with us as well, and we're doing SOC monitoring for you, remember, we're not monitoring internal data unless you subscribe to us as a service for this. That some customers don't want us to monitor internal data. The things we're monitoring there are just, if someone logs into that box, as root, we want to know. So that's monitored, and the availability. So it's making sure it's up and doing what it's meant to be doing. Once you subscribe as a SOC or take on us as a SOC provider, security operations provider for you, we are now out of the box. Just the standard offering is 18 months there. So that does meet the ASD, say Signals Directorate minimum requirement. When you get to your 18 months, it's still prudent from a compliance point of view, probably to order more storage or work out a secondary storage as well from a compliance point of view. You might need to go back several years later from a legal point of view and look at something that happened or something. So compliance often requires that as well. But starting off with 18 months, most vendors out there are giving you a 30-day dashboard, right? It's pointless when it comes down to incident response. That's the first problem to solve.
Suffice to say, we can work with customers, whether they're international or local, to meet their specific industry requirements, whether it's 18 months, 2 years, whatever you need, we can work on.
Correct.
And the last question I got, you mentioned risk auditing. Does that cover frameworks such as NIST and other international frameworks?
Yeah, I didn't get a chance today. We're trying to keep this to an hour or under an hour of this session, but I didn't. We do have automatic risk auditing in the platform as well, which you'll see what was it set up there. But yes, you go through the process with our team, and that audits your environments, your deployment, your site to best practice. SIS 8 is the one we're using at the moment. We then, through our C10 programs, have the ability to map that and these controls to any framework in the world. At the end of the day, frameworks are just about best practice. They just have different words and driving people to those controls. But can map to ISO 27000, and then from there we can map back to the Essential 8 and the ISM, and from there you can map to GDPR and other things. So it doesn't matter what frameworks. Any country, a lot of countries have their own frameworks here. In Australia, for the banking industry, we have CPS 234, which is again just another prudential standard. So there's thousands of these frameworks. The trick is work into best practice and your control set, and then you can map to any framework from there.
And I guess this is one of the unique features of Red Piranha, Adam, that you keep drilling into us on a daily basis, that we're not just a vendor of product and solutions, we're also a services-based company that can span all the requirements of a customer and a partner. And it goes down to your credo of people, process, and technology, right?
Yep, that's exactly right. Exactly right. It's all about people, process, and technology. Without one, you don't have really an effective program in place. All right. Well, if there's no more questions, look, I just want to thank everybody.
Any more questions? Anybody? I can't see any coming in. So thank you, Adam.
Yeah. Look, thanks everybody for coming out today. Get in touch with George or your account manager if you need to, if you want to have a chat about how this can be deployed in your operations. To give you a security uplift. If you're a partner, we have dedicated partner programs, we have partner assurance programs, and a dedicated partner program as well, which George has been very diligently improving and working on over the last 12 months. So get in touch with George, and he can help set up your partnership, and we can talk on how we can work together. Thanks again, everybody. Thanks, George. Thanks, team.
Thank you to all those online and those watching on repeat. Thank you.